Welcome back. Now we've implemented damage, and when we shoot the enemy's health variable goes down. But we've also added a headshot damage amount to each weapon type. So in this video, we're going to use that headshot damage amount whenever we hit the head. Let's get started. Now we have our enemy, and I'm going to go ahead and right click on the enemy in the world outliner and browse to asset and open up enemy BP. And for the skeletal mesh, I'm going to click browse to asset so that I can bring up the location where the Grux skeletal mesh exists. Here we have the Grux skeleton. I'm going to open that and I'm going to select skeleton tree. Now I'm going to search for head, and it looks like the bone for the head is just called head. Now it's important that we know the bone name for the head because we're going to use that when we detect which part of the skeletal mesh we're hitting with a bullet. Now since any given enemy can have a different skeleton, we're going to add a variable to the enemy class where we can store the name of the head bone. So let's do that now. Here we are in enemy.h, and I'm going to add a private variable called head bone, and this is going to be an F string. So we're going to call this head bone, and we'll make it edit anywhere, blueprint read write, and for the category we can use combat. So I'm going to copy the U property for max health and use it here. For the comment, I'm going to say name of the head bone. Now we can see which body part we're hitting from our line trace. Let's go back into shootercharacter.cpp, and here we have our cast to hit enemy. Now we have our beam hit result, which contains information about the hit. We can add a UE log to see which component we're hitting. So let's add UE log temp warning, and for the text we're going to say hit component, and the escape sequence will be %s for string, and we're going to get the beam hit result, and from the hit result we can get the bone name. This is the name of the bone that we hit, and from bone name we can call toString. Now this gives us an F string, so we need to use the asterisk to get a C style string. Let's go ahead and compile this. Okay, so we've compiled. Now back in the editor, I'm going to open the output log, and let's give this a test by shooting the enemy in different areas. So it looks like I shot the enemy in the weapon L bone. There's the weapon R bone. Let's see if I can shoot another bone. That's the root bone. And there's the head bone. So as you can see, we can access the name of the bone when we hit a particular section on the body. So we're going to use this to our advantage here. And we can select how much damage to apply based on the bone. So let's place a check here. Right after we cast to a enemy, we're going to check that bone name that we hit. As you saw in our UE log, we got that bone name by getting our beam hit result, getting the bone name, and calling the toString function. So here we're going to say if beam hit result dot bone name dot toString, and we're going to compare this, and what we need to compare it to is the enemy's head bone string. So we're going to say hit enemy, and we need to get that head bone variable, which we created in enemy.h and we made private. So we need a public getter that returns an F string. Let's go ahead and make that down here in the public section. This is going to be a force inline function. It's going to return F string, and we're going to call this get head bone. It'll be const, and we'll simply return head bone. Now back in shootercharacter.cpp, we can call get head bone. And so we're essentially checking to see if the hit bone name is equal to the head bone stored on the enemy class. If that's the case, then we know we got a headshot. So I'm going to make a comment here that says headshot. I'm also going to use an else, and for this, I'll just say body shot. Now our call to apply damage here is just using our weapon's get damage function, and that gets the regular damage amount. That's going to be for the body shot. So I'm going to paste that in there and go ahead and delete this, and I'll go ahead and delete the UE log as well. Now for the headshot, we're going to call the same function. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. The only difference is we're going to get the headshot damage instead. Now remember, weapon.h contains a function we created called get headshot damage. So we're going to call this to get the headshot damage from the weapon. So here in the headshot section, we're going to get the equipped weapon, and instead of get damage, let's call get headshot damage. Now we can compile this and test it out. All right, we're back in the editor, and before we test this out, we do need to set the enemy's head bone string value. So let's go to our enemies folder and open enemy BP, select enemy BP self, and we can search for combat, and here's the head bone variable. And remember, that head bone was just called head, all lowercase. So let's compile and save this. Now we can hit play, and I still have enemy in the world outliner search bar, so I can select the enemy, and now we can see the health. Now we can check to see if we're dealing more damage when we hit the head versus when we hit the body. I'm going to pick up the pistol so we can see one bullet at a time. Now let's go ahead and aim for the head. And that did 25 damage because we're now at 75. Now let's aim behind, say on the back, and that did 15 damage because we were at 75, now we're at 60. Let's shoot on the arm. Now we're at 45, so that was another 15 damage. And if we hit the head again, we should do 25 damage, and that should put us down to 20. And there we go, we're down to 20. Another headshot should bring us to 0. And there we go. So headshot damage is working. Perfect. That's going to conclude this video. In the next video, we're going to work on getting an enemy health bar drawn to the screen. I'll see you then.